Hey, what's up guys? This is Gabriel from jjcrespomusic.com, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about drumming, how to improve your time, playing with a click track, and how you can improve your fills by kind of figuring out how they fit into the metric of the groove or the form of the song, and in relation to how we play when there's a vocalist or another solo instrument that takes more importance than us as drummers. Okay, cool, so let's get into it. So first off, practicing with a metronome is going to improve your timing by 1,000%. A lot of drummers will say, well, I just like to feel this. To quote great session musician Jay Graydon, he would say, this guy has a great feel live is what he'd get when students would say, I don't like to practice with a click track. It kind of makes you stiff. And he'd say, listen, if that same player that you thought felt great live, quote unquote, went into the studio, they'd get kicked out immediately, right? Because no producer or engineer wants to sit there, even though it's a necessary function of the job, to be gritting drums. That's why they often say drummer is the first person replaced when they bring a band into the studio. Hence session drummers, John J.R. Robinson, Jeff Porcaro, Ricky Lawson, you name it, the list goes on, all the way to the Wrecking Crew, Hal Blaine. Those drummers were fundamental parts of these hit records because they could lay down the groove locked into the click track, and thus the rest of the session musicians or rest of the band could have a solid foundation to build on. So let's get into it. So practicing with a click track is great. You should practice the most basic groove ever first if you're going to practice with a click track. So I've got the click track set to about 100 BPM, and I'm going to practice just playing quarter notes on my hi-hat. So of course that might seem kind of ridiculous. You're like somebody who can do a lot of fills or something like that. You might be like, this is boring, I don't want to do this. Trust me, it'll improve your time. Playing the most simple grooves, don't get into the fills yet, okay? Now, when we get into patterns, remember there's two things that could fundamentally change the groove without getting ghost notes on the snare and extra things that you could do. Your pattern with your hi-hat, whether that's quarter notes, eighth notes, or 16th notes, and of course we could have the one-handed, right, which is going to give you that bounce, or the two-handed, right, gives you a slightly different feel. And then the kick pattern, that's going to be a fundamental difference, mostly on beat 3. So I like to think of it as how we approach 3. The most simple pattern, obviously, that we all know is just doing a 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So I'm doing a 1 and 3 on my kick, 2 and 4 on my snare. Okay, now without altering the snare, like I said, or adding ghost notes, I'm going to try a couple different kick patterns, right? So I've got two basic ones that you can start out with to test this out are going to be the 1 and 2 and 3 pattern, right? So I'm going to approach 3, basically, that's how I like to think of it, or the 3 and pattern, okay? So you've definitely heard both of these, and then the third one we'll get into in a minute, which is, I like to use the 1 T theta, 2 T theta, 3 T theta, 4 T theta, the 16th note, as opposed to 1 eanda. To count those out, you'll get the ta 3, so 2 T theta 3. That's something you'll hear a lot in more funk-based grooves. You might have a basic eighth note going. Let's get into the first of the patterns. I'm going to put the click track back on, and we're going to count. I'm going to use the 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 4 tay count for my eighth notes, okay? So we're going to do the first pattern is going to be the tay of 2, so tay 3, okay? 1 tay, 2 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 Now let's do the second pattern. That is where we do 3 tay, okay? So that second hit or second attack on the kick is 1 tay, 2 tay, 3 tay, 1 tay, 1 tay, 2 tay. Okay, so that's a second variation. The third variation is the one that we just talked about. 1 tay. Now, super important thing is kind of making that first the 1 T tay ta, so that ta 3. 2 T tay ta 3, that ta 3 feel like da-doom, right? You want it to kind of have a little lope to it dynamically, so you don't want it, it's not going to be, of course, if you are programming drums, you'll notice this right off the bat, that it doesn't feel great unless you adjust kind of the velocity or whatever of that first kick hit, so it's more of a da-boom as opposed to ba-boom, right? There's a difference to that, right? If it's, the way it feels and everything. Now, the next thing I want to get into is doing fills, and a lot of audio engineers will say this, oh my goodness, they just did this fill in the middle of nowhere, right? And basically what they mean is it's either off-grid or sometimes it's very clear that they don't know, the drummer is not aware of where the count is in their groove. Obviously, they might have still maintained 1 and 3 on the kick or whatever pattern they're doing to inform the snare, but then when they come off the fill, it's evident they lost that count or feel, okay? So, way to remedy this. Well, practice your fills, the most basic ones, very scientifically. Count them out. Figure out what they are, note subdivision-wise. So, if you're going to do a 16th note fill, if you're going to do it across the whole bar, it's going to be 1 theta, 2 theta, 3 theta, 4 theta, and then you've got a decision to make on 1, what do you do, right? We don't always have to hit the crash. Sometimes if a vocalist is coming back in, that might be a bit disturbing to kind of trample that over with a loud crash cymbal. You could land back on another drum, which a lot of really good session players will do. You'll see them do these fills and they're right. Doesn't feel bad. Actually adds arguably more to the groove than you landing on the cliche crash cymbal or whatever cymbal if you have a whole rack of cymbals going. So again, counting that out. Now, do I want to do a half bar fill in 16th notes? You can play around with, what parts of the kit you do this on. It sounds totally different. You don't have to always do the same left to right kind of thing. You could do something like that, right? But I could also make that a half bar fill. So if it is 3 theta, 4 theta, I need to start right on beat 3. So it's important I'm counting 1 tape, 2 tape, 3 tape, 4 tape, 1 tape, 2 tape, right? And I'm back into the groove. Couple simple tips that are super important when you're playing drums. Practice the grooves, practice them on different parts of the kit. That's kind of part of the idea of developing parts as you play. Try not to play the same groove the same way it's always been played. So those are a few tips on how to improve your drumming. Thanks for watching. As always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video, and I look forward to seeing your thoughts in the comments.